you have an archaeology special. We visit the Irish National Heritage Park in Wexford, where they're rebuilding some of the old Irish houses and forts. This summer, they'll be allowing visitors to stay overnight in a crannog and live the life of 1,000 years ago. Also, we cook in the Bronze Age way, a hot lamb roll with ketchup cooked in a fullacht fia. You're welcome to Nationwide, and this evening we're going right back in time. We're coming to you from the Irish National Heritage Park in Ferrycarrig in County Wexford, and when you visit here you can go right back thousands of years and find out what life was like here in Ireland in the Stone Age, right through to the Viking era. Here's a longship, and on up to the Norman occupation in the 12th century. Now, the park is having a bit of refurbishment at the moment. We're going to have a look at that as well. So I think really it's time to get going. One of the reasons we've come to the Heritage Park today is to find out about the refurbishment project that's underway. The best person to ask is the park manager, Maura Bell. Maura, there was a need for a total revamp?
Well, the park is nearly 25 years old at the moment, Mary. It's the brainchild of Wexford County Council, and we found that the lifespan of most of the sites, it was taking its toll with the amount of people going through the park, so we needed a big refurbishment and redevelopment. The park is going to be completely transformed. It's over a 2-year project, but it really is a work in progress. So even though we have the craft workers on site doing various things, thatching, stonemason, wattle and daubing, please come down and see it at all times. But when we are finished, we will have such a fun element in the park. We will have an interactive centre where you'll be able to try using a longbow, possibly throw a spear, pan for gold. Now make sure you let us know if you do find any. I'm sure we'll give you the right rate on it. And also we have 2 fantastic audio visuals at the moment, which we got with RTE's help. We're delighted with those as well. So we're looking for a whole new fun element to history and heritage here at the Heritage Park.
We'll be having a good look around the Heritage Park in a little while. This is one of the features. It's called a fullacht fia, and it was probably used for boiling water, had many uses. There's cooking, there's also brewing. You could even have a bath in there with the warm water. Now, Niall Martin has been to visit an archaeology student, and he has built 2 fullacht fias in a back garden.
Last summer I visited a farmyard in West Cork where something rather unusual was happening. Archaeology students Alan Hawkes and his friend James O'Driscoll had built not 1 but 2 fullacht fia to demonstrate what they could have been used for in the Bronze Age.
For the past year we've been reconstructing a fullacht fia in James's backyard here in Rosscarbery, and trying to reconstruct a woodline trough from scratch, and also test another hypothesis with the fullacht fia, sweat houses.
What we'll be doing today is actually just adding some hot stone into some water to try and boil it and cook the meat in it. Later on, we'll actually try and have a sauna in the house we constructed over there. We have a similar trough inside, and we'll actually try to produce some steam, and hopefully that'll be retained inside the actual hut feature.
The fire there will take about an hour or so just to die down, to get it red hot, and then we'll add the stones. The main thing here was to do it from scratch and fell the wood ourselves, using axes and shaping them into planks from scratch. Now we're using a hose here to fill the trough, but in most cases the trough would fill naturally with water. I'm pretty confident it's watertight. It seems to be holding the water there anyway. The water here is kind of mucky, but I wouldn't worry about that either. It should be fine, hopefully.
James is proud of this wattle hut he built in his dad's farmyard over 2 months.
It's not a house at all. People wouldn't actually been living in these structures. Basically what it is, or what we're trying to do here, is create a sweat house. And this will hopefully insulate the steam once there's a bit of steam boiling off the trough. There's actually a few examples that have substantial structures surrounding the central trough. And although there's actually quite few of these, such as Scartbarry in County Cork and Carricknafoy in Cove, County Cork. They're quite rare, so it must be stressed that many of the Fullochs Fia excavated are actually cooking sites rather than sweat houses. And here we actually have our central trough, and it's actually a bit bigger than the one outside. You just see here a small bit of moss. It's actually used with the clay to caulk in between the planks and help it to become that much more watertight. This was actually probably a well thought out process, because there's actually so much animal dung and straw and stuff like that. They would have actually had to think ahead and then think, okay, we need to collect all this material to actually make these hut structures. So something like this, they might have been collecting dung for a couple of weeks prior to actually making it.
The fire is now hot enough for the stones to be dropped onto the red-hot embers. It'll take a lot of stone to heat the water to boiling point. We've bought a leg of lamb for this experiment. Leah's impressed with the choice of cut.
So what are you up to now? I'm just going to wrap with a bit of meat in some straw. So I'm just going to lay down a bed like that, and then I'm going to put a bit more straw over the top, wrap a bit of string around it. I'll probably keep the top of this just clear so we can grab it out of the trough when it's ready.
Gordon Ramsay, you ready?
Oh, there's plenty to cover. So you just need to put something on top and now keep it down and open.
That was hot. We have historical sources to say that people were cooking food and bathing in the trough and using the fat from the animal, as kind of a grease to kind of replenish the body's natural oils and as well,
Basically, they were using everything they could. There was no waste.
While the lamb is cooking, it's time for a break in the sweat house.
You think about something like this, I'd say you'd have, this would be a community thing, well, especially with the sweat house thing, of people constantly bringing in hot stones, and you'll have people in here.
And it'd be a well thought out process as well. They'd be much quicker at it than we would probably.
In previous experiments, yeah, exactly. In previous experiments, they have said that they got the water boiling in 17 minutes. So I mean, they would have known exactly what to do.
More heat, Alan.
Yeah, more for me, please. Not too much.
The project is attracting a lot of local attention. But there's a problem for the lads. The water level has dropped inside the Fullochs Fia. Fresh water has to be added and brought up to the boil again. Lunch could be a while.
It's special to be seeing it, seen as though it was done about 5,000 years ago.
In our community and around our environment, and just down the road from where we live and stuff.
And you wouldn't see that very often. So.
Yeah, so it's very special.
Yeah.
3 hours after we first set the fire, it's time to take the lamb out and see how it's cooked.
Take the straw before it. Just leave it down there.
Will it be rare or well done? Leah's not overly concerned. Alan's carving not with a knife, but with a sharp flintstone.
Well, we actually do have archaeological evidence for flint at these sites. It's probably one of the most common find that you do get. So I think we will use the flint here to cut open the meat and see what it looks like inside. I think we'll maybe use the knife now, just to see.
It's a bit rare for some people's tastes. Another hour in the Fullochs probably wouldn't have gone amiss.
Yep. Okay.
That's up to you.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
Right? Yep. Well, finally, we've done the thing. we've made the trough, we've made 2 troughs.
Yeah.
And we've cooked a bit of meat, and we know that it has worked. And we've tested the swelling hypothesis, which has been around for 20 years or so, and finally it's been done.
So we started about 9:45 this morning. It's now just after 4. So it's been kind of a long day. Just
It's been a long day
for one lunch.
And the dog enjoyed it, and wants more.
Lip-smacking stuff there, I have to say. I absolutely love roast lamb. Well, now we're back in Ferry Carrick, and there's another lovely flavour here. It's not the flavour of roast lamb, but it's the flavour of burning logs. We're in a Cronogue, there's a log fire burning, and we're going to have a little tour with our medieval tour guide, Damien Busher.
Mary, how are you?
I'm fine, thanks, and you look fantastic.
Thank you very much. This is a daily garb for me.
It's gorgeous. Tell us about the Cronogue.
Well, at the moment we're standing on about a 10th century Cronogue, well, a recreation of a 10th century Cronogue for people who would know it's about 1,000 years ago, give or take. And the thing to remember here is this is completely surrounded by water, so it's an island out in the middle of a lake. And the type of people who lived here would have been right at the top of the social scale, probably royalty.
Oh, but so this was a little community, like a little hamlet?
Exactly, a family of very important people.
Mm-hmm. And this was reconstructed then recently as part of the whole project that's happening?
Well, originally this was built around 25 years ago, and unfortunately it comes to its end of its life. So this year we have a big redevelopment going on, and that's what you're going to see here today.
What needs to be done here now, Damien?
Well, unfortunately the whole of this Cronogue will have to be taken apart, so it'll actually be dismantled. One of our houses will actually be burnt down, probably the big one over here, which will probably look quite fantastic. Well, it's evidence. We're quite strongly linked with the School of Archaeology in UCD, so we want to burn down this site, and the archaeologists will then learn from that burning about real sites that they find around the country.
Okay, bring me somewhere else, Damien, and
we'll stroll up as far as the ring fort and see what we have up there, Mary, okay?
All right. So, Damien, this is the ring fort. What's the story here?
The ring fort is a little bit different to the Cronogue now, Mary. Essentially what we have here is a farm, a protected farmstead. But the farmers that lived here were actually a little bit above the ordinary farmer. So you had a little bit of wealth.
And a little bit below the royals.
Exactly, and a little bit of money at the same time. Our big wall here, our palisade, is going to be replaced. That was for protection. No money at this stage, so you have to keep cows. Cows are your money, so to keep the cows safe from all the cattle raiders. And as well as the palisade here, some of this thatch is going to be redone. Unfortunately, as you can see, our thatch here has moss on it, which means there's water being held in the roof, so we need to change it. Again, about 25 years old. Our thatcher should be here, Brian Rogers, and I'll introduce you to him.
Oh, I'd like to meet him, come on.
Right, so we'll have a look. We'll have a chat. Brian! Good afternoon, sir.
Hello, hi there.
We're interrupting your work, Brian. My goodness, what a difference between here and here. Is this the traditional thatch that would have been used years and years and years ago?
Yes, the Irish did it 2 ways. One, we used to use a swingle stick and mess up the thatch and then draw it and use it as long straw, which would be more loose and open. And this then is the comb straw, where they would have cut the straw and beaten the heads over a rock to remove the seed and kept the ends out only to make a tougher surface.
It looks as if Brian has done a little bit of rethatching here as well.
He has indeed. Brian was working here before he moved on to the ring fort, and as you can see, he just done the ridge here and the caps, and he done a fantastic job on it, I have to say.
And where are we? Need I ask?
We've moved on now, Mary, to the monastery. And who lived in the monastery?
The monks.
Exactly. There was the monks that lived here, or the nuns. Don't forget the nuns. And we've moved on to about the 5th century AD, give or take. So about 900, 1,000 years since the last time. And life for monks was generally 3 activities in their life. They're going to have to work, the same as the farmers. So they're outside the walls, farming the land, making flour, collecting honey, brewing beer, very important.
There's a garden there.
Oh, there's a garden, there's about herbs in the herb garden. And they had to pray, and they also had to read and write. So monks were the first people to be reading and writing in the country.
And are all of those buildings represented here?
All these buildings have something to do with the daily life in the monastery. The refectory, behind you here, that was where you eat, very important. Breakfast, lunch and dinner. Little stone building, the beehive cell, you'd have 3 monks sleeping in there. This one down here was for the leader, the most important person, the abbot, and of course the scriptorium over here was where all the reading and writing went on. So the Book of Kells, the very famous 9th century Book of Kells, would have been made in a scriptorium. But it's very important to tell the times of the day to pray, so we have a very special tool for that, which is a sundial. And here today we have 2 stonemasons, and they're actually making a sundial for this monastery, if you care to have a look.
Oh yeah, what a lovely way to tell the time.
Excellent, great way. We'll have a look and see how they're getting on here.
Okay. Sean Hickey, I'm really impressed. You've done all of this work on the sundial so far.
Have you?
Just explain the actual procedure.
Well, the stone will be sitting upright, facing towards the sun, so it catches a shadow from the dowel there, which shines upon these lines here. That'll tell you which time of day that the monks will come in and pray then.
Well, that's your dad over there behind
that's
you.
my father over there, yeah.
We better go over and see what he's at. What's his project?
Yeah.
You must be very proud of your son. He's doing really good work over there.
Absolutely, Mary. Yeah, it's great to have my son working with me and taking an interest in the stonework, the conservation and dry laid walling and carving at this stage.
Do you like working on these ancient sites and projects?
Absolutely. I love the older stuff because there's so much we don't know about, so we're always trying to interpret what went on and recreate. And I love it.
Very different style of dwelling here, Damien, and quite extensive.
Very true, Mary. We've actually moved back in time quite considerably now. We moved back to the Stone Age, back to about 6,000 years ago. As you can see, we're in the first stages here today of reconstructing one of these houses from 6,000 years ago. We're starting off here now.
Owen Donnelly, Damien assures me that I would have been very comfortable in that house 6,000 years ago. You're the project manager here with Muintir na Cuilla. Explain how it all works.
Yeah, Muintir na Cuilla is a cooperative society. It has been for about 18 months now. Before that, it was a loose association of foresters and green craft workers. We're all have backgrounds in working in sustainable forestry. And this is what lends our way of living and our philosophy of sustainable management, woodland management, to bring us into work like this, because we can actually harvest sustainably all the materials we need to put up structures like this.
And so, Damien, in the heat of the hunt, when all is said and done, whether you were a king or a peasant or a farmer or a monk, this is where you ended up, in Boot Hill, the burial chamber.
Yeah, we end up in the burial chamber, unfortunately. But, Mary, if you were buried here, you were someone of status, you were someone rich, important, the farmer with lots of cows. Tour guides are not rich enough to be buried in dolmens, unfortunately.
You speak with great knowledge and enthusiasm about the history and the people who lived so many years ago. You must love the job, Damien.
I really, really enjoy the job, and there's so many aspects to the job that are enjoyable. Meeting new people, the job is never the same, the tour is never the same, and it's a great experience for myself and for the people who are on the tour, and you get to learn a small bit about it as well. I hope I send people away with a better knowledge of where they come from and their identity and where Irishness has come from.
Moving away from Ferry Carrick now for a while, there are occasions when archaeology can be coupled with anger and resentment in this country. Remember the protests that took place along the route of the M3 motorway at Lismullin when archaeological remains were found. We have a story for you now about those archaeological remains and the stories that they tell.
It was a battle the protesters were never going to win. In 2007, they set up camp, held rallies and sit-down protests to stop the M3 motorway from ploughing through a newly designated national monument at Lismullin. But the shiny new road was built, destroying 80% of the national monument. To be fair, they wouldn't have found what was there without all the construction diggers uncovering it in the first place.
The site itself would never have been detected were it not for the diligence of the archaeologists at that time. The excavation director was Aidan O'Connell from ACS Limited, and it was their discovery and it was their quality surveying and data capture that enabled us, in a sense, and me, to look at the data from a different perspective and to continue and take forward the analysis to the level where we now understand, hopefully, the real meaning of the site.
And this is what Lismullin looked like in 600 BC, an amphitheatre for ceremony and ritual, an avenue leading to an inner circle, visually impressive, but quite simple to build.
Okay, I'm setting out the radius and taking an arbitrary point on the edge of a circle. And then to keep a regular spacing between the post holes, we can do this, whatever that unit is that you want, and we can pull that and we can go a second one.
Everything in the design is in multiples or fractions of what we would today call 8 metres, showing that they were working from a single 8-metre long measuring tape.
Someone had the idea, and that's the fundamental starting point. The individual who conceived of this idea of 3 concentric circles, which have appeared elsewhere at other sites, but this one is special because of the regularity and the symmetry that's embodied in the evidence of the data itself. Now, from my perspective, I would view this as a fundamentally major discovery in terms of evidence of social organisation by a community who were living here in this landscape and organised themselves in such a way as to build this ritual complex. The setting is also important. It's adjacent to the River Gowra, which is just below the ridge, and it is also set in a natural hollow identified by Aidan O'Connell and his team. So the topography almost self-selected the site, I suspect, because it provided those who would have visited the place with a natural ridge, giving almost like an amphitheatral setting. So how many would have gone into the enclosure, we cannot know. Perhaps it was the restricted few who processed in and conducted whatever rituals and ceremonies took place at that time. And perhaps the rest of the ordinary populace assembled on the natural high ridge surrounding the site to view the proceedings.
Once the archaeologists worked out what was going on the ground, they turned their eyes to the heavens to see if there were any interesting alignments.
So the overall plan is symmetrical, proportional, but there's a lot more going on in the site than just symmetry and geometry, because the alignment of the avenue, which was 4 metres wide from side to side and extended out in that direction, had an alignment which is very interesting. And there are 2 possible explanations. One is on the rising sun at a time of year which was special to the users of the site. The other theory on the alignment of the avenue is that it could be aligned on a particular group of stars which we now call the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters. And they are a distinct group, not that bright, but they are observed in the night sky as the end of summer approaches and the beginning of winter starts. And they would have transited the avenue in the Iron Age around 600 BC, and that would have been observed and noted by these users of this site. So the Pleiades would rise on the horizon out there, and they climb higher up into the sky and would have crossed the avenue. The phenomenon would have lasted about 20 minutes and repeated each evening.
So why did hundreds, perhaps thousands of people gather here at Lismullin?
This was an assembly place for celebration and ritual. There was evidence of hazelnut shells which have been burnt, suggesting perhaps that partying and celebration went on. And, you know, the gathering of food at that time of the year, and I've got some berries here, or rather hazelnuts, which I'm about to eat, and food was critically important to the survival. And gathering the food, gathering the crops, and getting them successfully in at that time of the year, and then maybe the celebrations start.
The M3 motorway opened last June. 21st century commuters were delighted with the sleek new road bypassing Navan, Dunshaughlin and Kells. We may have destroyed what was underneath the tarmac, but now we know our ancestors came to Lismullin for a show, snacked on nuts and went home.
Isn't it amazing what you can find from digging around in the earth? From Lismullin back to Ferry Carrig, and we've come to the end of this evening's programme. Hope you've enjoyed our visit to the Irish National Heritage Park. It really is a great day out, well worth a visit if you're in the area, and if you come along at the moment, you'll be able to see some of the facelift that's taking place here. Buonil ered lor I wahagwif, agus gadeshiv slán. Health issues are to the fore on next Wednesday's Nationwide. We turn our attention to 3 seriously debilitating conditions: motor neuron disease, arthritis and the dance therapy associated with it, and Parkinson's disease, which has struck 2 stalwarts in the entertainment world, Richie Kavanagh and Shay Healy.
And next on 1, it's the restaurant.